So, should we begin?
That's what we're here for.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club.
So, Matt, first of all, I would like to wish you a happy relationship anniversary.
Yes, 25 years ago today, I first kissed my wife, the woman who would eventually become my wife. And this was not an arranged marriage type situation. I was not kissing her once we were already married. This was today is St. Patrick's Day when we were recording this, and we were at a St. Patrick's Day tent show and going around and drinking. And then while we were dancing on the dance floor at St. Patrick's Day tent show, we started making out. And then we've been together ever since. That was the last girl I ever kissed.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah.
Well, whereas meanwhile, I'm wearing my Murphy's Irish Stout rugby shirt that I bought in Cork many years ago.
Cool.
So, yeah. All right. So anything else that you want to tell our listeners or me before we jump on into the meat of this stuff here?
Nope. You have anything to report?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into this here. I guess we haven't discussed who's doing which book. Do you want to do Amazing Spider-Man or do you want me to do it?
Either way.
All right. So if I do Amazing Spider-Man, that means I would also be taking Thor and Hulk. I tell you what, I'll take Daredevil and X-Men instead.
You're a man of exquisite taste.
Yes.
Okay. So we are doing the books, we should say, of October 1968. Let's go ahead and jump in with Amazing Spider-Man number 65, Escape Impossible. We have a really nice Romita cover of Spider-Man running along a wall while he's being chased by a bunch of prisoners in a jail.
And I found that both on this cover and on the interiors, I'm once again getting a little bit more of that influence on Dave Gibbons in this issue.
Yeah, I can see that. So then we jump inside and we have a lovely surprise. Guess who is gone? Gone for good.
Oh, heck.
Don Heck. Don Heck is gone from this book for good. He has been just having a slight influence on this book for the last 12 issues or so, where he has been assisting John Romita with pencils as John Romita moved up to be art director for Marvel Comics, or art director in all but name for Marvel Comics. And he has been assisting on Spider-Man and just ruining the book a tiny amount, just bringing a little bit of heck to it. And then he is now gone, replaced with a new person who is going to be doing finished pencils and inks from now on. It says, how lucky can we be, bestowed upon a fortunate fandom by Stan the Man Lee and John Ringading Romita, artistically aided by Jim Madman Mooney, with lettering by Artie Simek. So we have skipped over here the 2 issues of Spectacular Spider-Man. We're going to have an announcement about those in probably not this episode, but in a future episode. And we're going to be covering those books soon. But those books were the debut of Jim Mooney on Spider-Man. So I'm sorry we're covering these out of order, but this is the actual major monthly debut of Jim Mooney on Spider-Man. And I'm a big fan. So Jim Mooney goes way back to the Golden Age. He was a big Golden Age guy, worked for Timely, worked for Stan Lee when Stan Lee was 18 years old or so, and Jim Mooney was older. And then he moved to DC, and he was most famously associated with Supergirl. He did the Supergirl backup feature that ran in Action Comics, I believe, for about 10 years, right up until right now. And then in 1968, he left DC once apparently Marvel's page rates were getting closer to DC's page rates at this point. And Mooney thought he would be a better artistic fit at Marvel. And once Marvel's page rates got up at least close to DC's page rates, he went ahead and made the jump. And I am loving it. Steve, what do you think of Jim Mooney's finished pencils and inks on this issue?
I think they're pretty good. I am happy with the change. Jim Mooney, I don't really have a strong association. I don't have a strong sense of his artistic style yet.
Yeah, he is inking with a heavy hand here. There's a lot of black on every page, and I love it. He's got very little cross-hatching. It's all done with brush. It's really beautiful. So we have The Impossible Escape. Spider-Man, as you recall, fought the Vulture for 2 issues and then ended up passed out on the street And suddenly the crowd, of course, turns on him immediately and is like, let's rip his mask off. But here comes George Stacy and Gwen Stacy, who run in and block everybody and say, stay back. No, we haven't the right. And manage to break up the crowd. Gwen Stacy, clueless as always, is going around trying to find Peter, and is George Stacy, you always get the impression, knew, and indeed they will later reveal that George Stacy knew all along that Peter was Spider-Man, but Gwen has no idea. She's watching them clear clear rubble away. Roughage? I don't know.
I think rubbish and rubble is what you sort of put together there. What do you think of Gwen's dress here, the color scheme on her dress?
We're getting very 70s, not 70s yet, just late 60s. And it's very earth tones. It's orange, yellow, and green and black. The 60s are my all-time favorite era for fashion, and the 70s are one of my least favorite eras of fashion. So when you sort of get this 1968 coming of the 70s fashion, I always find it a little disappointing.
Yeah, I just found it was very striking.
Yeah, it is. No, it's a pretty dress. Of course, Romita, always great drawer of ladies' fashions. And whoever is coloring it in keeping with the times. So then Spider-Man is arrested. He is sent to a hospital, but he's sent to a prison hospital. But they say, once again, one of them says, I agree with Mr. Jameson. We should unmask him. And then the other says, the police commissioner himself has personally ordered hands off. We want to check it out with the city's legal eagles. He's not risking a court upsetting a possible conviction because he may have violated this character's civil rights. So this is not the only time this month we'll have a Marvel comic where someone will be put in jail with a mask and someone will talk about civil rights and the legal rights of the person in jail. So then he is sitting in the prison hospital and wakes up and is thinking about what he's going to do. And then George Stacy is in the prison hospital calling Gwen at home when suddenly he is taken hostage by a bunch of escaped cons who are going to bust out. And now they have George Stacy hostage. And then they run across Spider-Man and they're like, what's he doing here? And Spider-Man says, well, I only have one choice here. I have to tell them that I'm a bad criminal and I want to escape with them because that's the only way I'm going to be able to defeat them and rescue George Stacy. And he gets in a fight with him a little bit, but then that just convinces him like, okay, you're one of us. And then he goes ahead and joins them, supposedly. Meanwhile, we see once again the abomination that is Mary Jane with a perm. And she is...
At least her hair is red in this one.
Yeah, it was brown last issue. She would just look totally different, but it's more reddish this issue. So she is interacting with Harry Osborn, who is still worried about his father and his father's obsession with Green Goblin. Can't quite piece that together. And that's all going to pay off in Spectacular Spider-Man #2, which we're going to cover soon. So then back inside the prison, we get Spider-Man supposedly helping these guys, but really trying to work against them. And he does something that it's interesting. It really shows off how much this book has changed since the Ditko days, because he does something that's right out of Ditko, where right in the middle of all this, he decides to call his aunt. He decides to call Aunt May from the prison phone while he's in the middle of doing this very tricky undercover work. And then in Ditko, this was a very funny thing. And he pulled it off beautifully. And, he managed to, keep Aunt May happy while making a phone call in the middle of a difficult situation. In this one, it goes terribly. And she's like, I was so worried. Where are you? You've never kept things from me before. There's something wrong. I just know there is. Why would you tell me whatever it is? I want to help. And he thinks I never should have done it. She's more upset than ever now. So, sort of shows the degree to which things have gotten a little more fraught since the Ditko days. Anyway, he finally knocks out the power, takes the opportunity to knock out all the escaped prisoners, web them all up. George Stacy, as always, knows exactly what the deal is and tells him, yeah, you'd better get out of here. And he does. And then George Stacy
No, that's not what he says. George Stacy is like, well, clearly you're going to stick around to stand trial because you're innocent. You'll be exonerated. And Spider-Man's like, yeah, no, I can't do that. He's like, well, if you're not a criminal, why are you hiding your identity? And he thinks to himself, because of Aunt May. No, George Stacy wants him to stay and face justice and be exonerated.
You are correct. I was incorrect. I was forgetting exactly how this went down. But then George Stacy immediately has his back as soon as he's gone. He says,
Yes.
And they go, but he escaped. He's a fugitive. It says, perhaps, but that doesn't alter the facts. Because of him, the jailbreak was foiled, and I stand before you unharmed. So he still has Spider-Man's back, even though he is disappointed that Spider-Man won't turn himself in. And it says, next issue, Mysterio. So that is this issue. I think it is an excellent issue. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous art from Romita and Mooney, and I think it's a very fun jailbreak undercover work story. I always like George Stacy's character, and I think everything's humming along beautifully here. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I really liked this issue. I thought it was a ton of fun. I liked his dilemma in terms of how he deals with the jailbreak and Captain Stacy's safety. One thing that you skipped over is that Foggy Nelson shows up at one point near the beginning of the story when they're arguing over whether they can take Spider-Man's mask off. And he's speaking with George Stacy. George Stacy says, I think the commissioner's decision was a wise one, Mr. Nelson, so long as he's kept under heavy guard. Foggy says, in an election year like this, it certainly pays to be cautious because, of course, he's running for DA. Spider-Man's capture has aroused nationwide interest. So, it's so we get that tied into it as well. Once again, one of the things about the Marvel universe that they try to keep you interested in all the other things that are going on in the Marvel universe. And yeah, it's a fun issue. And yeah, that's about all. The last thing I have to say is, unfortunately, the very final panel, I really don't like. And I think this is mostly a John Romita thing. I don't know how much Jim Mooney could have fixed it, but the perspective in that panel is all over the place.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And then that's compounded by the feathering lines pointing towards Spider-Man that are all working at cross purposes to the cement blocks or whatever of the building he's hanging beside.
Yeah, it
really just that last panel just really throws me, unfortunately. But that's everyone's going to have a bad moment like that from time to time.
Yeah, I'm going through my notes here and I'm seeing a few things that I had meant to add. I point out that Jim Mooney actually did the art for the fanzine that had Ray Bradbury's first published story when he was doing art early on. Yeah, I talked about how he calls Ant-Man, it doesn't work out. The stories are just less lighthearted when they were, Ditko had a deft light touch to a certain extent, and Spider-Man had a deft light touch. And Romita is a little heavier, and the stories are a little heavier.
Which is odd because I usually think of Ditko as being a gloomier, more pessimistic sort of person. But yeah, you're right. I can see what you're getting at here. And I find that a little bit surprising.
Yeah. And then I say at the end, good one-off villains. Not every villain needs to be a keeper. And these little dudes escaping from jail are never going to come back. And that's just fine with me.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Steve, you want to go ahead and lead us through Daredevil?
Yes, Daredevil is fighting the Jester once again. We have a wordless cover, and it is once again one of the ones with a photographic background. We have Daredevil and the Jester fighting while swinging from the arm of the Statue of Liberty that is in the background.
But the Statue of Liberty is a photo of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, it's a photo of the Statue of Liberty that they are fighting in front of. Nice, well done cover, I think, even though the perspective is questionable.
Yes.
The foreshortening is a little bit unbelievable. But let's go ahead and get into this. Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, the dismal dregs of defeat. A panicky production by Stan the Man Lee and Gene the Dean Colan. Stan Still has written every single word of Daredevil up to this point. Yep. Embellished by Vinnie Coletta, lettered by Artie Simek. Now, you argued with the last issue of Daredevil that you didn't think it was actually Vince Coletta inking, that you thought it was actually Dan Adkins, who for some reason didn't get the credit on it. I'm guessing that you do not hold that opinion on this issue.
Of course not. This is so clearly Coletta. Look at the Jester's glove on the first page with those odd little hatching marks. There are
Yeah.
so many odd little hatching marks just on this first page. It is so clearly a different inker than the last issue. This is clearly Coletta, and that last issue was clearly Atkins in my mind, in my demented little mind.
All right. So I figured so much, but I just wanted to address it. So when last we left off, the Jester had convinced the world that Daredevil had murdered the Jester's alter ego, and had set up something in a TV studio, but then it was a little confusing exactly what happened. But at the end of it, the Jester had subdued Daredevil, and the cops were coming to arrest him.
Mm-hmm.
So the cops are trying to get up to arrest him, but then Daredevil is able to kick the Jester in the face and goes and takes his escape from the cops who are shooting at him, although apparently not that wholeheartedly, as we will get to in a little bit. We still in this issue have the crazy kooky panel borders,
Yes.
where I don't think we've got a 90-degree panel border. There may be one sequence in here that has it, but for the most part, we've got all sorts of diagonal and weird jaggedy off-kilter panel borders throughout.
And I like it.
Yeah, once again, this seems to be a choice that about the Jester being such a wacky, off-kilter screwball villain, that the panel borders would reflect his state of mind.
Yep.
So Daredevil is now on the run from the law. He can't get a break anywhere. Has a couple of incidents with some cops where he actually has to fight the cops. Once again, that is on tricky ground when you come to the Comics Code Authority, for your hero to be in physical fisticuffs with cops. But somehow they are able to get away with it. At one point, Daredevil thinks to himself, the one thing saving me is the fact that the police, bless their underpaid hearts, are reluctant to shoot to kill, which is nice.
Yes.
So then at one point, Daredevil is trying to go, thinking maybe he can make it to his office building, but then the cops are staking it out. And Daredevil thinks to himself, I should have anticipated it. Everyone knows that Nelson and Murdoch have been friendly with Daredevil. So what's more natural than to put a stake out at where we live and where we work? It's like, dude, they know who you are.
Yes.
Oh yeah, well, they're staking out where I live. Yeah, that makes sense. They would think that Daredevil might go there. Yeah, why do you think they think that?
I think there's this idea of like, well, everybody's figured out that one of the three of us are Daredevil, but one of us is blind, the other one is chubby, and the third one is a girl. So they just can't figure out who on earth it is. Like, clearly, one of these three people is Daredevil. We have no idea who. We're just going to stake out this place because we know Daredevil's coming here.
Yes. They do acknowledge the physical strength that it takes to do all of the acrobatic things that Daredevil is doing, especially when he has no place to rest. He's thinking to himself at one point on page 10, well, one thing's for sure, I've got to stop swinging before my arms pull a dropout act out of their sockets. It's like, oh, good. Some acknowledgement that this swinging around the city when you don't have Spider-Man super strength might be a bit of a problem. So he then descends into a subway station and ends up mugging a guy for his trench coat.
In the art, he flat out kills the guy. Like, if you look at the art on page 11, it totally looks like he sneaks up behind a guy. It's like, hey, that guy's trench coat. I'm going to go ahead and strangle him to death with a chokehold. And then I'm going to, seemingly tuck his dead body somewhere here in the subway station and go off wearing his coat. That is what the art is saying to me. If you read the writing, Stan makes it perfectly clear that it's like, not only does he make it clear that it says, you'll wake up in a few minutes, friend, and you'll find enough cash to pay for the coat in your pants pocket. It's like, yeah, I don't know about that. Why couldn't you have just walked up to him and bought his coat?
Where does Daredevil keep the cash?
Yeah, somewhere rolled up in his skin tight outfit.
Yeah, I guess probably that's one of the compartments in his billy club.
Yeah.
A wad of 20s. And of course, his sunglasses appear out of nowhere once he takes off his mask and covers up with the trench coat.
Of course.
So he then gets on the subway, and I really like the subway scene here. It's very well drawn by Colin. And but Matt Murdock doesn't stop to think that he's still wearing his red gloves, and he reaches up to grab the straps like a regular strap hanger, and somebody suddenly notices what's going on. He's like, oh crap. Okay, hopefully no one else noticed. Well, that guy convinces himself he didn't see anything, but it just turns out the jester just happens to be on this same subway. And at the very least, they do say, which ought to win us a king-size no prize for the most cataclysmic coincidence in recorded literature.
But the jester is on the train in his secret identity of the normal guy. But it's like, dude, the whole reason Daredevil's on the run is because he killed your secret identity. You can never become your secret identity again. This is, once people see you, they're going to be like, oh, well, clearly Daredevil shouldn't be on the run because clearly Daredevil didn't kill the guy.
Yeah. It's not a lot makes sense here. I do respect them for at least acknowledging that this is a ridiculous thing. But the jester is able to figure out that this is indeed Daredevil. They end up getting into a fight in the subway car. Once again, it has a nice claustrophobic feeling, which I think is accentuated by all of the diagonal panel borders.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the one place where you get something approaching a horizontal panel border is when we get a little aside to Foggy and his girlfriend Deb, where they're discussing where Matt Murdock got to and where Karen is, and how Matt shouldn't have pushed Karen away. And now at this point, she doesn't want to be anywhere near him. Anyway, we get a little bit of a break from the goofy panel borders for a little bit there. So Daredevil ends up going to, well, I know it as Liberty Island. What was it called at the time?
Bedloe's Island.
To Bedloe's Island on the tourist ferry. And I guess that the jester follows him there, even though they'd been fighting. He didn't notice that the jester had followed him. It's a little bit like, okay, sure, we're getting to a set piece.
Yes.
How they get there doesn't really matter that much, I guess. I guess there are no ticket takers here for the walk into the interiors of the Statue of Liberty here, because they just go right on in and start going up the stairs. Yes?
They make it clear that it's closed for the day. So there's not going to be anybody around. The statue's deserted. It'll be just Daredevil and me. That makes it almost too easy.
Yes, so that makes a lot of sense that the ferry was still going to the island on that particular day, and I don't know how they got around whatever sort of door might be closed, but once again, it's a set-piece fight that they're trying to set up. That's all that matters. We're just trying to get them there. So they end up in the crown of the Statue of Liberty having a fight. Daredevil ends up jumping out of one of the holes in the crown and swinging out on his billy club string hanging off of one of the spikes of the crown. He ends up coming back in and kicking the jester. The police have a police helicopter that somehow has tracked them out here or figured out that they were having this fight. And one of the policemen ends up lowering himself on a rope ladder to try and apprehend Daredevil and the Jester mid-air, cable fight here. And not only is that unwise in and of itself, apparently the police helicopter gets too close to one of the spikes and it ends up severing the rope ladder.
Yeah. I don't think the policeman had a union yet. I don't think there was any fraternal brotherhood of police, because he is putting himself in a risky situation here. He needs a little bit more union protection to make sure that he does not have to endanger himself to this degree.
Yes. Not as much as they have these days, but
Yes.
Yes. So anyway, Daredevil ends up dropping the jester, and theoretically he's going to fall into the water, even though I don't think that he's close enough to the water to where that would actually work, but that's the story that they give us. And Daredevil, meanwhile, then catches the falling policeman while still hanging on to his own billy club cable. The policeman says, "You could have gone scot-free. You didn't have to risk your life to save a stranger." And then the cop thinks to himself, so I feel like a grade A heel for doing this, but we all have a job to do. And he has a syringe of some kind of knockout something that he sticks into Daredevil's shoulder and injects him with.
While he is dangling above the ground, with the only thing holding him up is Daredevil holding on to his billy club and then holding on to him. He then knocks that guy out who is holding him up. He then grabs the billy club, extension cord, the billy club grappling cord, and then is now somehow has hands free. Here's how many hands this guy has. He has one hand free to hold on to the extension cord. He has one hand free to hold Daredevil up, to hold this guy, and that's hard to do. And then he has one hand free to inject him with a solution in the back. So he's got at least 3 hands here. Really, he needs at least 5 or 6 hands because it's very hard. We all have that moment with our kids of like, oh, I need to pick my kid up for some reason. I haven't picked my kid up in a couple of years. How hard can it be? And then you try picking up your grown kid and you're like, oh my God, this is killing me. Imagine, Daredevil seems to be bigger than this cop, and the cop is holding him up with one hand. It is one of the most inane sequences in Marvel Comics.
It's up there. It's something else. So then the very last shot in the issue, Daredevil is in the prison infirmary, just as Spider-Man had started out the previous issue of Spider-Man. Daredevil is now ending up in that same situation here, but then what looks like a prisoner, what do you refer to the prisoners who do jobs in the prison? Well, one way or the other, a prisoner who seems to have a job in the prison there in the prison hospital thinks to himself, hey, yeah, why don't I go ahead and see who Daredevil is? And he's just about to take off his mask. And that is the end of the issue.
Well, first the prisoner says nobody wanted to take his mask off till they got some kind of writ from the judge, but the judge won't be back till morning. So once again, we've got judges trying to figure out if you're allowed to take off somebody's mask in prison. Let me go ahead and help those judges out. Yes, you are allowed to take off people's masks in prison.
Not in the Marvel Universe, apparently.
I realized that the power of criminals had sort of peaked in 1968. I think that was the year the Miranda decision went down. So it was the all-time peak year in American history of the rights of criminals, which have just been receding since then. So
the rights of the accused, I will point out.
Yes, the rights of the accused. But even the rights of actual criminals, even the rights of the convicted were sort of peaking around that time. Anyway, but yeah, this is funny that both of the first 2 books we're covering this week have the same moment happen in them. Yes.
So anyway, at the end, it just says next retribution.
Yes. So do you want to say what you thought of the issue before I jump in?
I will say it was a very kinetic issue. Right. Yes. It just was nonstop action from start to finish. And, I did very much feel the chase going on.
Yeah.
This is a high energy chase for Daredevil's freedom. That being said, there are some extremely inane moments in here.
Yes.
But overall, I guess I'll take it. Some of the inane parts were done to set up this set piece, which, while ridiculous, is at least cool looking. If I had paid my 12 cents for this issue, I don't think I would have felt ripped off. I'm not sure if I would get the next issue or not, but I probably would. Yeah,
I guess. I would think like, why isn't this book as good as these other books that Stan Lee is writing? But I would, if I had, if I were a rich man, I would go ahead and pick up this book. Sure. If only for the Cohen pencils, which I do like. My notes on this issue, I say I do like the cover. I like how it's silent. I like how there's no text on the cover and just them dangling from the actual photograph of the Statue of Liberty. I would generally agree with your note that the issue was inane, that it had several bizarre or hugely coincidental plot turns in it, and it was not the best plotted issue. Whether we want to give credit for the plotting to Cohen or Lee, does not strike me as a coincidence that the Cohen books are never as well plotted as the non-Cohen books. But I thought it was perfectly fine. Little disappointing to have Coletta back when I am convinced that he was not here last issue. But the art is not terrible. Let me just look at my notes. When the Jester is showing off to the police that he has defeated Daredevil, he's like, yes, I defeated him with popcorn. And then he thinks to himself, there was poison gas in the popcorn, but I'm not going to tell the police that. It's like, why not? Because you just want to prove to everyone how much Daredevil sucks, going like, do you know how much this guy sucks? I was able to defeat him with normal everyday popcorn. And the police are gonna be like, oh wow, Daredevil sucks, we didn't realize that he was defeated with normal popcorn. And Jester's like, ha ha ha, you'll never know that there was gas in the popcorn. It's inane, as you say, yes. Bizarre. I love, of course, that Daredevil is on the run from the cops long enough for it to make the papers. That this is
yes, yeah. At one point, when they're on the subway car, somebody is reading in the paper that Daredevil is on the run from the law.
Yes. So, as always, what is the news cycle question we have to ask in these things over and over again? Yes. Okay. So that was it for my notes. We should move on. A perfectly okay and fairly typical issue of Daredevil.
Yes. All right. So let's move on to Thor, which is yours.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to Thor number 157. Behind him, Ragnarok. And we just have Thor being grabbed by a giant Mengog or Menyog claw here on the cover. And we go ahead and jump into the issue, the mighty Thor, behind him, Ragnarok. Now let's see whether even Stanley and Jack Kirby, aided by Vince Coletta and Sam Rosen, can get us out of this one. And so it's going to be real quick summing up this issue because it's just one big, huge battle. We pick up where we left off, where Thor is fighting Mangog. Again, this is a situation very similar to the legendary Superman Doomsday thing, where you just have this guy who is walking towards the big city kind of slowly, and everybody's trying to stop him, and you just can't stop this guy, even though all he's doing is, you know, this guy with no weapons and no ability to do any sort of ranged attack is just sort of slowly walking towards the city, but no one can stop him. And then we cut back to the land of the Norns, I guess Nornheim, where Karnilla is still got her Legion of the Lost that is attacking Balder, but eventually the Legion of the Lost are like, why are we attacking Balder? We're good Asgardians. This makes no sense. Queen of the Norns, we say thee nay, the bravery of Balder hath freed us from thy spell. And so then Karnilla's like, well, I'm still in love with Balder, but fine, I'll go ahead and send you all back to go help fight Mangog. They all go back, so we're moving all our characters into place here. It says that they go, the realm eternal is doomed, and Balder yells, not whilst an Asgardian lives. Take arms, one and all, we fight till we fall. So Mangog finally starts tunneling underground to get there, and you've got sort of a fun panel of Hogan with his ear to the ground trying to figure out where Mangog is tunneling underground. Mangog then comes up out of the ground in Asgard, which sort of one of the hardest things to draw, and I discovered this in my brief time trying to draw comics. One of the hardest things to draw is the outskirts of a city to show like where the edge of a city is, because, you know, edges of cities, unless it's like a walled city, which I've never made it clear Asgard is, are very sort of gradual things. And so they sort of solve that problem by having him tunnel up under Asgard. And then he takes the column of eternal flame and pours the flame out over the city and lights everything on fire. Fantastic splash on page 8 of Balder leading a charge of Asgardian warriors to go attack Mangog.
We get another for Asgard.
Yes, with
I think there are 4 A's there.
Yes, 5 A's total, 4 A's in a row. And so then they go ahead and everyone is fighting. Thor catches up to Mangog at this point. They are all just fighting the heck out of each other for many, many pages. As always, Kirby doing this bizarre mix of sci-fi and fantasy in Asgard. On page 12, they have this huge sci-fi looking cannon that they are using to shoot at Mangog. Loki, meanwhile, is still in charge of Asgard, and he is like, failure is not for Loki. The worlds may die. The Prince of Evil shall e'er survive. E''er. Error survive. Says, I'll waken Odin, the Allfather will save us. Nay, he sleeps the sleep of life. None may end his royal slumber, save he himself. And Loki says, then all that remains is flight. Loki alone must live. So then he is trying to take off, although he had the right idea, but he was almost did save Asgard there, if only that guy had not warned him off of it. Then we get to this problem where you have this huge handle of the Odin sword, which everybody who wants to destroy Asgard tries to grab. But it's so much bigger than Mangog that Mangog looks a little silly when he's trying to wrest it from its scabbard on page 17, that it's really only makes sense when you have one of the all-time most legendary issues of Thor, issue 353, when Surtur makes it to another Ragnarok story, when Surtur makes it to Asgard and is actually big enough to remove the sword from the scabbard and then light it in the flame instead of knocking the flame over that time. And it's like, ooh, this feels really badass. It feels more badass than whatever Mangog is planning to do whenever he gets this big honking sword out of this big honking scabbard. But then eventually Odin wakes up and that solves everything. And Odin decides to really do the nicest thing he could possibly do in this situation. He decides to restore. This whole time, Mangog has been furious at the Asgardians because he is the last survivor of a billion people who Odin destroyed. And then somehow those billion people merged their spirits together to form Mangog, who has been trying to now destroy Asgard. Well, Odin is like, I'm going to restore all of those billion people to life. And so a billion beings shall live again to dwell in peace for air, FRE''ER. And so that's really the nicest thing you could have done for Mangog and turn him back into a billion peaceful people.
Well, okay, so a couple of different things about this. First of all, okay, well, that undoes the super uncomfortable idea that Odin felt forced to actually just commit mega genocide in order to solve the problem of Mangog's people. But that brings up the other thing, is that they made it clear that the Mangog's race was essentially guilty of genocide many times over themselves. So he's like, oh yes, well, now they'll dwell in peace forever. Where are they going? What what planets are they going to be on? What's there now? How are they going to treat other beings going forward? You've made so clear that they deserved to all be killed, that now bringing them back absolves Odin of his crimes, but then sets up what is going to happen next.
Yeah, I guess that this whole thing has taught them a lesson, and they're like, woo, we're never doing that again. We're never going to be able again. That was, we don't want to go through that whole situation.
So while we're on this page and these panels, once again, as people, I assume, know, but if you're listening in opposite order, you might not. I am reading these on Marvel Unlimited subscription service. Matt is reading scans of the original comics of dubious provenance. So how is Odin's facial hair, colored on page 19, panel 5?
Yeah, it's red for no good reason.
Right. So, which is how they usually color Zeus.
Even on the same page, it's white haired at the top of the page. It's just, they just briefly got confused and made it red. So then Odin sticks the sword back in its scabbard. Thor scoops up Sif, who was also there fighting and swooned for a while, but now she is restored. And then you get one of the rare things you get in Marvel Comics. You get just a flat out ending. You get everybody. This feels like the ending of a movie. You've got all of our characters, the Warriors 3, Baldur, Sif, Thor, and the Recorder, all standing before Odin. And it says, and so it ends. And so the fruit of Asgard, the brave, the strong, the valiant, pay homage once again to him whose cause they serve, whose name they honor, whose glory they share. All hail to lordly Odin and the realm eternal. And then instead of saying the end, or like next issue, what's going to happen, instead of it says, Dum Spiro Sparrow, DUMSPIRO exclamation point. And that's the end of the issue. Did you look up Dumb Sparrow, Steve?
Yes, I did. I have it in front of me at this very moment. It says, while I breathe, I hope.
Yes, which is the state motto of?
Oh, I have no clue.
Your neighbor, South Carolina.
Ah, okay.
Yes. So then suddenly, I don't know if this is Odin speaking here, but Odin is like, my loyal subjects, I was just driving through South Carolina and I looked at their license plates and I realized that the best thing to say in this situation is Dum Sparrow, Latin for while I breathe, I hope. And that is how the issue ends. And I think it's great. I think it's great to have, this is a fantastic conclusion to a fantastic saga. It is, boy, the stakes cannot be higher. The action cannot be more spectacular. And the ending cannot be more final and definitive. If this had been the last ever issue of Thor, it would have been a great ending. This is just fantastic. All of the characters get serviced. All of the characters get good moments. I don't know. I guess there's not a great full stack moment in here, but we don't need it. It's a fantastic issue. Steve, what do you think of this issue?
Yeah, I thought it was a great conclusion to this storyline. Yeah, with the whole Odin sword thing, At this point, it just sort of seemed to be if the sword is pulled out of its scabbard, that magically creates Ragnarok, as opposed to later when Walt Simonson did his Ragnarok story, when it's like, no, it's a problem because I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Which, as opposed to it just being a key that essentially unlocks Ragnarok. I like that Sif that while Thor once again at one point earlier in the issue, I don't have the page in front of me, but is saying, get behind me, Sif, I'll protect you. And she's like, no, my place is by your side.
Yep.
If you die, I die. We're fighting this thing together. And I like Sif speaking up for herself there, although, I kind of wish that Thor would get on board with it.
Yep.
And I like the fact that Odin didn't actually commit mega genocide. That's good.
Or if he committed it, he then uncommitted it.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh no, they were just basically in suspended animation this whole time.
Yeah,
Okay,
presumably they
sure.
went home to their houses, which are just very dusty from being abandoned since when they all were killed, however many years or hundreds of years ago.
Right. Yeah. So good issue, and we're left with a blank page for what happens next issue.
Yes, which is fine. I'm sure they will come up with something exciting. Yeah, I say at the end of my notes, great all battle high stakes issue. Put Everett on inks and it would be a perfect issue.
Yes.
But alas, it's caught.
Alas, alack.
Yes. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yes, let's do X-Men, which is a bit of a tease.
Yes.
A little bit of a tease because, Steranko does do 1 or 2 issues coming up here. And
he does the next 2 issues.
We get a Steranko cover. And it's quite a Steranko cover. There's a sort of android looking face looking up with skulls for pupils in the eyes as the X-Men run across his face, and it's signed Steranko. I was like, oh yes, we finally got to the Steranko issues. And then I opened the issue.
Yep.
So X-Men, the most unusual fighting team of all time. Who dares defy the Demi-Men? DEMI-MEN. And these credits, they all just start with the letter X. Ecstatically presented by Stan Lee. Excitingly written by Arnold Drake. Exuberantly designed by Don Heck. Extraordinarily drawn by Werner Roth. Exquisitely inked by John Tartaglione, execrably lettered by Herb Cooper.
Execrably. I've never known how to pronounce this word. Execrably.
Yeah, okay. I guess with my my probable dyslexia, I think I've always swapped the C and the E. And I don't know. Anyway, one way or the other, some word that basically means terribly.
Terribly lettered by Herb Cooper. Whoever Herb Cooper is, that seems to be a new letterer. But total fake out here. Total disappointment where you got this great Steranko cover and it's like, oh, dare we hope? No, we don't dare hope. Drake, Heck, Roth, Tartaglione. Terrible writing art team on this book I was going to say for the last time. It's not the last time, but after this, things get real interesting. Steranko does the next 2 issues. Then the old art team is back for a couple of issues. Then we get Barry Smith doing one of his first Marvel comics. Then bad art again for a couple of issues. And then we get Neil Adams for 9 issues, which is going to be the best that this book has ever looked. And I'm going to say that even better than Kirby. I'm going to say I'm a huge Neil Adams fan. But that is still coming up.
Better than Kirby and better than Steranko, huh?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Steranko's work on this book, as we'll see in the next 2 issues.
Yes.
But
my understanding is he actually asked that his name be taken off of it.
Okay. Well, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here.
Yes,
Let's go ahead and do this Drake, Heck, Roth, Tartaglione book.
Yes. So we start out with the Angel in his godforsaken costume coming back to the X Mansion for reasons that aren't that well defined. It just sort of seems like he's coming back to immerse himself in better times. So he gets in there and he hears this ticket, 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 ticket going on from somewhere. And he's like, wait, we turned everything off. What's going on? And then he realizes that this is Cerebro going crazy, getting all of these mutant signatures. So, what's up with this? Well, he uses Cerebro to actually, is he using Cerebro to contact Jean, or is he just thinking, hey, Jean, I know you've got a connection with me. So
yeah, it's a little unclear. He refers to, I can use Jean's new psychic powers. It says, I'll try Marvel Girl's new psychic powers. I know she can pick up my thought waves, but can she hook us all together like a conference phone call? Well, got to give it a try. Concentrate harder, harder. So no, it doesn't seem like he's using Cerebro at all. But she suddenly has huge psychic powers, seemingly even bigger than Professor X's. I don't think Professor X could do this.
Oh, I think he could.
I guess he could, but the 5 X-Men are all in different places all over the country, and she just instantly links them all up. So we've got Scott Summers while he is reading the news on the news radio, and you've got Warren, and then go ahead and tell us where Bobby and Hank are.
So she's having a hard time getting in touch with Bobby and Hank, and it's because they've decided to go skydiving.
Yes.
Apparently she can handle thousands of miles horizontally, but if you add like 1 mile vertically, then she's out of her depth here. Yeah, so they just have decided to go skydiving and then end up getting the psychic call while skydiving.
They say that this is a new cover job for them. They need secret identity jobs while they're doing their superhero work. We've gotten a new job. He's billed us as the Danger Twins. And so they're stunt skydivers, seemingly, and they're making money off this.
I had forgotten that detail. But they don't seem to be actually, this seems to be warm-up work at this point, as far as I can tell, because there doesn't seem to be any audience watching them. But Hank essentially does the psychic equivalent of hanging up the phone call because he's trying to concentrate on what he's doing, but he realizes that he's forgotten to pull the cord until it's too late. And he's like, oh man, I'm just going to be a stain on the ground. But then Iceman is able to get some ice tongs and stop his descent, or at least slow down his descent.
Tongs actually have a screw in them. So this is an actual, working device with a fulcrum and a screw and all kinds of stuff like that. So this is a very sophisticated work of ice sculpture he is doing here, which of course doesn't work very well. It instantly shatters when Hank puts any weight on it. So really all for nothing.
I don't think it did any good. I think that Hank just was able to survive the somewhat low opening of the parachute just because he is the Beast.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on here. So we then cut to a gloomy San Francisco hill, a strange mansion, and it's got all of these people or androids. I think they're people in these android-looking uniforms, and they are surrounding somebody named Mesmero, who claims to be the pupil of Magneto. They're all saying, all glory to Magneto and his noble pupil, Mesmero.
So why it has to be Magneto? Why can't they all just worship Mesmero? Especially because Magneto eventually turns out to have nothing to do with this story. Like, why? I don't know why Magneto even has to be involved in any of this, but okay.
Well, is Lorna Dane revealed to be his daughter in the next issue?
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm jumping the gun here a little bit.
Jumping way ahead, yes.
Jumping a few pages ahead. So Mesmero has some kind of big device that sends out this beacon saying, awake, awake, awake. And so all of these people who are latent mutants end up getting delatentized, getting activated in their mutant powers. One of them is a young woman who we're going to find out is named Lorna Dane, who, when this happens, she ends up absent-mindedly walking out into traffic. Bobby, oddly enough, puts ice under her so that she slips and falls because that gets her out of the path of the truck. It does not work. I'm looking at this sequence of events on the page and I'm not buying it.
Well, it does work in that he does save her life, but
Well,
it
yes.
does not work as a storytelling device.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I meant. Then Bobby seems to be acting like a smooth operator here and being like, "Oh yeah, okay, baby, come back to my place for a little bit."
Yeah, I had forgotten that Lorna just very vaguely becomes his sort of love interest here for the next 10 issues or so. We had mentioned before that we were never going to see Zelda again, according to the indexes I was reading, but I'd forgotten that that's because Lorna becomes just very, very vaguely his love interest.
So Bobby brings her back to their apartment, and Hank is flipping out because he's like, dude, the rest of the X-Men are showing up here any minute. You're going to blow our cover. And indeed, the rest of the X-Men do walk in at that particular moment.
I didn't see why they were so worried about it. I think they figured out at this point that she is being summoned because she has some sort of mutant power. And they're like, why not just usually when they meet someone with mutant power, they're just like, hey, everyone, we're the X-Men. Here's our secret identities. Let's go ahead and try to recruit you. I guess they haven't figured it out yet. They haven't figured out she has any mutant power yet.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that Bobby just saw this woman sleepwalking out into traffic. It's not until she takes a shower at their place and washes her hair and the hair coloring comes out and they see that she's got green hair.
Mm-hmm.
But so one way or the other, they leave Hank behind for whatever reason to be there when she wakes up or when she gets out of the shower or whatever is going on in that case. While they all take this ship that they borrowed from the Avengers to follow the beacon that Cerebro has given them to find where the epicenter of this whole incident is. So they get there and they have this big fight with these people in the orange and purple uniforms, the ones who I was describing earlier as looking like sort of android-ish humans. Now, are these supposed to be mutants? Because they never really show any mutant abilities of any sort. They just seem like big muscly guys with guns.
They're demi-men, Steve. Doesn't that answer your question?
Yes, they're demi-men. Are what? So wait, are they Devo?
They are not demi-men. They are Devo. So, yeah. I gotta say, I really do not like page 10. Page 10, we've got a big splash page of, one of the hardest things to draw in comics is to have your whole team fighting a whole army of villains all on the same page and get everybody's proportions correct and have interesting action going on with every single combination of hero and villain. And it's very hard to do. And evidence, that it's hard to do is how poorly done it is here.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. The page just seems to be scattered. There doesn't seem to be like a real focus to anything. It's just like, oh, well, here's some more space. Here's where we're going to put this person.
Yep. I'll say that when John Byrne later is the penciler in this book from issue 108 to issue 143, he is especially good at showing all the X-Men in the same splash page, all fighting a bunch of villains. I remember noticing when the X-Men fight Alpha Flight around issue 120, there's just a spectacular page of this. You really have to be at the very top of your game like John Byrne to do this. And if you are near the bottom of your game, as are Heck, Roth, and Tartaglione, you can't pull it off.
Yeah, and I'll say that Dave Cockrum was no slouch in that department either during
he was great. Yeah.
So I just didn't want to give him short shrift there. So we cut back to the apartment, and Hank is now in his Beast uniform, which he wasn't earlier, which seems an odd thing to do if they're like, she can't know we're the X-Men. Right?
Yes.
And also, why didn't they leave Bobby? I guess the reason they left Hank behind is because he was doing something with some machinery here and they needed his technical abilities to do that, and Bobby wouldn't have been able to. Lorna, meanwhile, just goes ahead and takes a shower and gets in a robe, which seems pretty presumptive for 1968.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's 1968 San Francisco. Maybe she's just a lady of the times. She's like, oh, okay, sure. I'm at this guy's house. Let me just go ahead and take a nice shower and I'll come out in my robe. And wait, who are you? You're not Bobby. You're some dude in a mask who I don't recognize. And she has the green hair. He sees this and realizes that she must be a mutant because it's not yet a day and age when women might just color her hair green just for fashion's sake. So the rest of the X-Men come back and grab Hank and then leave Bobby again in his Iceman guise, although he doesn't say he's Bobby. He's just like, oh, I'm Iceman. I'll protect you. So the rest of the X-Men head out. Iceman is attacked by Mesmero and the Demi-Men, who is trying to protect Lorna Dane. In the end, Iceman is hypnotized or mesmerized, I guess, by Mesmero, and all of the Demi-Men start bowing down in worship to Lorna Dane. And theoretically, the reason they're doing this, that we will find out in the next issue, is that she is, at least in theory, Magneto's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether they ever retcon that or not once they establish that Magneto has other kids as well. But
yeah, it gets retconned real quickly. Before long at all, they make it clear that he is not really her father. I think it may be in the storyline. I think in the storyline, it may be a tease, and then they reveal, no, it's not actually true.
Okay. All right. So next, the truth about Lorna Dane. And next, the truth about Jim Steranko.
Yes. Very excited.
All right. So we've got a backup feature, but do you want to talk about the main feature before we get into that?
Yeah, I thought that this issue, the art is terrible, but yeah, the story is somewhat interesting. We have two major characters introduced, Lorna Dane, aka Polaris, who is going to have a nice long life and get a lot of great issues out of her, and Mesmero. There's going to be some good Mesmero issues coming up over the course of the long history of X-Men comics from this point on. And I was really happy to get those. I'm so happy that this storyline is going to move on to some better art starting with next issue. And of course, the plotting makes no sense. So much of the plotting makes no sense. Tripping her up with the ice makes no sense. But, just in general, the whole keeping track of how we are protecting our secret identities makes no sense. Why they are skydiving for money. And you're right. This must be a dry run because no one is watching. No.
Right. And they're not in any kind of flamboyant costumes or anything like that. They're just two dudes, skydiving.
Yeah. Makes no sense. So much is inane about this issue, but oh well. Foretaste of some better things to come.
I just realized I had two cut and paste notes that I had in here. One, when Warren first is in the X Mansion and is hearing the ticka ticka ticka, he thinks to himself, and the professor's top secret equipment is all under lock and key here. Yet there's not that noise, and it's for real. Gotta find it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, am I having a stroke, or are those words don't seem to make any sense in that order? I don't know what's going on. But then also when Bobby rescues Lorna from being hit by the truck, he says, "Call me Bobby, lady, and I think you need some rest. My pad's not far from here. How about a hot cup of Java?" And she says, I'm in no condition to refuse, even if I wanted to. Which is a weird response.
Yes.
But then meanwhile, in the background, there's a guy who's noticing the ice, and he says, "The deuce? What's ice doing on the streets of San Francisco?" Which just lots of weird dialogue in this issue.
Yes. Just checking out my notes. I say on the cover, whenever you show Bobby Iceman going along one of his ice bridges, and whenever he's at the top of the bridge, I always wonder how he got there. When there's a big arc of a thing, like what force sent you up to the top of this arc? Unless you can fly, I don't know how you did that, unless he's coming down from a much greater height and it's sort of bumping along as it goes. But I like the general plot escalation of summoning all latent mutants. I think that's a good way to escalate this book. And I just say, I always like green hair. I've always had a soft spot for characters with green hair.
Yeah. So let's move on into the backup. So we're getting an origin for the Beast, but what we do, well, we would just say a beast is born, made possible through the bestial energies and animal artistries of Stan Lee producer, Arnold Drake writer, Werner Roth artist, John Verpoorten inker, I Watanabe letterer. So we are getting not just the origin, but sort of all the way back to his birth and the things that happened to his father that ended up causing him to be born the way that he was. We start off with a nuclear accident about to happen and somebody in a control room trying to stop it. We then jump back a little bit to when Hank's parents are getting married. Hank's dad is some kind of nuclear scientist, and they are moving into a new planned community somewhere out in, theoretically, New Mexico or Nevada or something like that.
This might be Arrested Development's Sudden Valley. Isn't that the name of their planned community and Arrested
Yes.
Development.
Yes. They moved to Sudden Valley. Exactly. Apparently, this is all a planned community around an atomic energy plant.
Mm-hmm.
And she is not 100% convinced this is the greatest idea. He's like, "Oh, don't worry, honey. The neighborhood will fill in, and you'll have friends and neighbors around here shortly." And she's like, "Yeah, but your work is also dangerous." As it turns out, it is indeed quite dangerous in that
Yes.
there is something where the carbon damper rods are not descending into the atomic pile the way that they're supposed to. And so the atomic pile is starting to overload. And Hank volunteers to go get in his radiation suit and go into this control room where there's way too much radiation for the radiation suit and manually lower the damper rods into place. But then he collapses and people have to come in there and grab him and carry him out. But he seems to be fine in the hospital, seems to be getting better. And then shortly thereafter, she convinces him they have to move, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yes. She says, you'll either find yourself a new job or a new wife.
yes. So he finds himself a new job somewhere else. But then it turns out they're going to have a kid. But the doctor is like, yeah, with that radioactive incident that you had, there might be a problem with the kid. At which point his wife's like, oh my God, no. It's like, yeah, you don't just sort of bring that up, in casual conversation, basically. It's like you want to handle that delicately. But then Hank is born, and the only thing that looks unusual about him is that he's got the overdeveloped hands and feet. So they're not infant hands or feet. They're like the hands or feet of a toddler, basically. And he's able to hold his bottle with his feet and gives his uncle a punch on the jaw at one point because he doesn't like the coochie coo bit. So anyway, the parents both seem very happy with Hank, and we will be learning more about Hank's development next issue.
Yeah, that was always a good twist in the X-Men comics. I always liked how Hank's parents are always like totally cool with him being a mutant, which is a nice variation on the theme.
Yeah. I don't remember that actually, but yeah, they clearly seem to be setting that up here.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I like the art in this one. We once again have Werner Roth, but John Verpoorten really just seems to elevate just about anything that he inks. I find that I like the art in this. I also like that Hank's mom finally stood up for herself, and she's like, "We are not living here anymore." Basically, yeah. I'm moving. Are you coming with me? It's essentially what's going on here. And I like that she sticks up for herself there. And I like that they acknowledge that he's got freakishly large hands and feet, but that doesn't seem to bother them at all.
Yeah, I say right out that Roth without Heck feels like a blessing now. When you have like, oh, good, it's just Roth. Well, plus Verpoorten. Verpoorten does such a good job inking these X-Men backup stories. It's very odd that that's still the only thing he's inking. But he was someone who actually worked in the office. And I guess they said, the only thing that, taking time away from your day job, the only thing we're going to let you do is X-Men backup features. But yeah, the art is shockingly better than it was in the first half of the book, which Roth also worked on. I thought it was interesting that the story of like how nuclear reactors melt down is very well done. It's very accurate. Like, yes, this is what happens in a nuclear meltdown reactor. Yes, this is how you would stop it. You would need to lower the carbon control rods into the atomic pile. It was interesting that they had a very clear sense of how that would actually work. Of all the stories we've read, this is one that makes it most clear that it's like exposure to atomic energy is what caused all these mutants to be born. Of course, they mentioned at one point that this was true even of Professor X, which makes no sense. That it would mean that Professor X was also in his 20s if he was young enough that it says his parents worked at Los Alamos. It's like, well, Los Alamos was still an empty desert until 1944. And if his parents worked there, then that would mean he was in his 20s. If his parents worked there before he was born, that means he would be in his 20s, which would make no sense.
I gotta say, that would make his fantasizing about Jean Grey a lot less creepy if he were just like 25 or something like that.
Still her schoolmaster. Still not good.
Still an issue. And I guess even at 25, that would be like an 8-year difference or something like that. But still less creepy than it comes across if you assume he's in his 40s or so.
Yes. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to Incredible Hulk. We've talked before about big teases this month, where we were hoping for better art and we didn't get it. Well, this issue, we get it, not on the cover. So this is the opposite of a big tease. The cover is clearly not inked by Severin, but we've got the Incredible Hulk, Monster Triumphant. We have a very sort of busy and confusing cover of Mandarin is shooting a bolt at Nick Fury while Hulk is leaping through the brick wall, presumably to stop it. But we then get into the issue and we find it's the reverse tease because the art inside the issue is wonderful. The Incredible Hulk, Monster Triumphant, written by our leader, Smiling Stan Lee, who misses his green skin gargoyle. So Stan Lee is back on writing. Illustrated by our follower, Happy Herb Trimpy, who longs for his Phantom Eagle. We didn't do this, but there was a World War I book they just briefly toyed with called The Phantom Eagle that Trimpy was the artist on. It says, embellishment, John Severin. Lettering, I Watanabe. So we have had John's sister, Marie Severin, both penciling under Trimpy's inks and inking over Trimpy's pencils. Well, now she is gone for good from this book. And then just after a couple issues after she disappears, her brother shows up to be the new inker, and not just inker, but embellisher over Herb Trimpy. And this is what Trimpy has needed. And it is gorgeous. I love this issue. Steve, what do you think about the art in this issue?
Yeah, I mean, I love John Severin finishing just about anybody's art. It's really a nice treat.
But I think he's particularly suited to Trimpy because Trimpy is so dynamic and somewhat sketchy and loosey-goosey. And to have Severin, who is the opposite of sketchy, Severin, who is etching like an engraver and doing heavy blacks and very solid shapes, then to have him over Trimpy, I think is just a beautiful combo. So we begin with...
Can you hold on just one second? Just a second. Han, were you saying something? All right, sorry about that. Amy came back from Costco and brought me a sundae, so I had to go grab it before it melts.
Okay. Well, enjoy your sundae.
I'll try to eat it while you're talking. All
okay.
right, yes.
So we begin with the Mandarin is still lording it over the Hulk, who is sinking down into a vat of quicksand. But then the Hulk just gets to the bottom of the vat. And it's like, well, I can still find the walls and smash my way out of them. So he gets out of it. Then he's like, okay, I'll put you in a jar of gas. I know you're susceptible to gas. We get, interestingly, the Mandarin and his men are colored orange in this issue, which they'll later do with Master of Kung Fu. I don't think they've ever colored Asian people orange before now. He then says he does something very similar to what we just saw in Captain America. He puts a identical looking strip of tape on the back of Hulk's neck with a little bit of circuitry on the strip of tape. And he says, I have placed this control device on the monster's neck. I should have done this sooner, though none can overcome his indescribable strength. He has a weakness. He has an Achilles heel. He can be defeated by striking at his most vulnerable point, his brain, and then starts flashing ahead to all the things he'll have Hulk wreck now that he's got control of the Hulk. And meanwhile, so they are presumably, I guess they've made it clear that they are in the Gobi Desert at this point, near the border of China and Mongolia. But so then Nick Fury, who captured his Soviet analog, Brevlov, I think is his name, and is still flying around, presumably in just one of his normal helicarriers, has decided that I am just going to violate all notions of borders. I'm going to violate anybody's airspace, and I'm going to go find the Hulk in the Gobi Desert. How he is not getting shot down is anybody's guess. We then get, for the first time this month in the books we're going to be discussing, Mao. We have actual Mao as a speaking character on screen. Not the last time he's going to show up this month. And he is saying that our Western comrades have shown their true colors. They attack us even now. So everybody, I should make it clear that the Soviet Union and China are all shooting missiles at each other here. It's a whole thing going on. So then Mandarin sends the Hulk to attack Chinese tanks. They are spectacular sequence on page 9 of the Hulk landing on a tank and then smashing 2 tanks together. And then continuing on page 10 of the Hulk, continuing to rip off the gun turrets of tanks and smash them all up.
Yeah, that's just a really spectacular sequence.
Oh, don't pretend you're not in the middle of enjoying a Sunday. So
I just unmuted myself for a second there to make a brief appearance.
So then it's unclear to me exactly. You're reading a Sunday. You can't jump in and explain to me, but it's unclear to me exactly who is going to war with who and who all is smashing up each other. But I suppose it doesn't really matter.
I just got the impression it was just the Soviet Union and China, that they were trying to pit the two of them against each other and that they would end up nuking the world.
Yes. So then Brevov and Fury go crashing into the Mandarin's headquarters and try to stop him from doing all this. They knock the Hulk control device out of his hand, and then the Hulk is like, tanks move back, waiting, fearing Hulk. I feel something fall from back of my neck, but nothing matters except Mandarin, and wherever he hides, Hulk will find him. So I guess by dropping the remote control, that makes the tape just fall off. And so then
Yeah.
Still completely unclear what the Mandarin's rings can do. One of them, it turns out, can shoot stun gas, which is not something that will eventually make it into what the rings can do when they finally make it clear in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. But then he's about to kill Brevov when suddenly the Hulk comes smashing through the brick wall, much as you see on the cover. And he then goes ahead and seemingly kills the Mandarin. Brevov and Fury escape. Presumably, we don't really see them escape, but it sort of says that they escape. And then Hulk destroys the entire mansion and says, somewhere there must be a place for Hulk. But until I find it, I'll keep fighting till I die. Do, 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 do. So then that next issue, The Coming of Kazar. So sort of hurried wrap up to this massive storyline. And once again, how this all works with the concept of airspace, the concept of national borders and airspace is still very unclear. But I thought this was a fun issue. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a ton of fun. I really liked the John Severin finishes. There are a few odd things that I want to bring up, a couple color related. So you mentioned that the soldiers were colored that orange color that has sometimes in the past been used for Asian characters. They did not do that here in Marvel Unlimited.
Huh.
They are just colored like European people. I find that interesting since they usually go out of their way to match the coloring in the originals, even when there were weird choices that were made there. On page 6, panel 3, another color question that I've got for you. There are some vertical feathering lines on the floor around Nick Fury and Yuri Brevlov there. And on mine, there's a garish magenta blob that's painted on top of those. Is that in yours as well?
Yeah, it is.
It just makes no sense. What on earth could the colorist have been thinking? There's nothing magenta behind it for that to be reflecting. It's just so strange. But I do really find it interesting here, the dialogue that Nick Fury and Yuri Brevlov are having. Nick is saying, seems like only yesterday that we were pulverizing the Nazis together, pal. And now we each wind up on different sides of your blasted Iron Curtain. Yuri says, but a friendship such as ours was born in battle, honed in comradeship. It must not be shattered by mere national politics, which is interesting in the middle of the Cold War. To have these two people, and also it seems to imply that both of them were non-coms who ended up getting somehow the rank of colonel, which is not common for somebody below the rank of lieutenant to ever do. But seems to be the implication here. At one point, the Mandarin refers to the Hulk as a lumbering aborigine.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Brings to mind the idea that the term aborigine used to just essentially mean indigenous person or something to that effect.
And presumably a derisive term for indigenous people.
Yes, presumably so. And at the very end, when the Hulk is leaving and you were saying somewhere there must be a place for Hulk, it just reminded me of the Tom Waits version of Somewhere. You ever heard that one before?
No, I never have.
There's a place for Hulk. Somewhere a place for Hulk. Yeah.
I just posted a blog post about West Side Story today. So yeah, I just rewatched the movie.
Yeah. I strongly recommend his version of that song. Just the pathos that you get from his rendition is stunning. Anyway, fun issue, good art, and I'm looking forward to this team continuing to bring us some great entertainment.
Yes, they're going to stay. Trimpe is going to stay for years. Severin is going to come and go, unfortunately. So, and there's going to be a marked difference in the quality between the Severin inked issues and the Trimpe and the issues with other inkers like Jack Abel and a couple of inkers who are going to come and go. Yeah, I'm just going through this issue and I'm finding all of these just beautiful art. Page 11, panel 3, when we're looking at Yuri Pavlov in profile and Nick Fury behind him, really looks more like something penciled and inked by Severin, like from an old EC War comic.
You're right. Yeah, I absolutely can see that.
Really looks amazing. But then you have something that is very clearly an example of Trimpe and Severin working together, like on page 17, when you have this extremely dynamic thing, more dynamic than anything Severin has ever drawn, of the Hulk smashing through the wall. And but it's given this weight and heft and power by Severin's inking that is just gorgeous.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Severin's inks, that's something that probably as a kid I would not have really liked. I think that, when we were reading comics as a kid, I would have looked at this and just thought that it looked strange. I mean, I don't know. It's just so out of character with the kind of inking that I was used to seeing at the time. But now, looking at it, I'm just utterly enthralled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were doing Hulk reprints when I was a kid, and I saw reprints of old Severin Trimpe books, and I loved them. So I can tell you with all certainty that I did love this art team as a kid. And I remember thinking, like, how come some of these Trimpe reprints are so much nicer looking than these other Trimpe reprints? And I wasn't sophisticated enough at the time to go like, oh, they have different inkers. I just knew that I liked some better.
Whereas I, the future inker, was very much paying attention to what inkers brought to these things.
Yes. Well, I eventually did, but, I was very young at the time. And then I end by saying good to get Stan Lee back on the book.
Yes.
Some good scripting, including, the reminiscing about the old days of when the Soviets and Americans worked together. Yeah, just a beautiful book. I love this issue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one to end on this episode.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap things up there. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm not Jerry Springer. I do not have any final thoughts for you here.
Yes. Well, that's a shame. But we will, next episode, we'll have special guest Jerry Springer, who may be dead, I guess.
Jerry. Yes.
I think he may be dead, so he may not be available to be our guest on the next episode, but we'll see. Okay, Steve, let's go and wrap it up there. Bye, everybody out in podcast land. We will talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Stay safe out there.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.